times the fear of experimenting or the feeling of, oh, I shouldn't or I don't want to or whatever is because you have absorbed messaging that is inherently dogmatic. Welcome back to the Diaries of a Witch podcast. My name is Angelica Creasy. Today we're talking about how to actually weave magic into your day-to-day life. I do think that being a witchcraft content creator has helped with this a lot. I think that it has done it for me in terms of being one of the things that makes me think about magic and witchcraft and paganism and deity work and all these things 24/7. I mean, I'm like literally, this is my job, right? So it's my job, it's also my hobby, it's also my spiritual practice. And that can get kind of tricky. Like there are definitely issues with it, like I'm not gonna lie, right? But I think one thing that it has been able to do is given me this unique perspective on how magic interacts with my day-to-day life. And I've had to do a lot of shadow work and a lot of journaling and a lot of, work at the altar with my deities, trying to figure out what this means for me, how to split my time, how, what should I show? What should I not show? What things and parts of my practice do I need to keep secret? How do I weave this into my day-to-day life without every minute of every day becoming like part of my career, right? So I feel like I've thought about this a lot. I've come to a lot of conclusions about it. I feel uniquely situated to discuss it, to give advice about it for all of these reasons. So let's dive into how you can actually weave magic into your day-to-day life. The first thing I'm going to say is about time, right? Time, experience, growing up, learning about yourself, every day, just, becoming more and more you, accepting yourself more, all of these things, right? This is going to help. Time and growing into yourself really helps with this type of stuff. I'm like right in the throes of my Saturn return right now. And I feel like I've been doing a lot of all of that, right? And so I really feel that, especially right now. And I think that many years ago, I really wanted to make sure I was doing everything. And I was like, I just want to advance in this and I want to get better. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm so glad that that was my perspective because it led me to where I am today, right? I'm so glad that Angelica from the past was so intensely interested in the expansion of her magical practice and that sort of thing and making it a part of her day-to-day life. But so much has happened since then in my practice. Things that I had no idea were going to happen, things that I could not predict, signs that showed up one day, things that came into my day-to-day life that really changed the way that I practice, that really changed how I show up in my day-to-day practice. A good example for this is you might do a type of spell that you haven't done before and you get such great results from it that now you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make this a big part of my life. You might find a type of magic or maybe another spiritual system or magical system like astrology or divination or something specific, like a specific topic of interest. You might stumble into that or intentionally walk in the door and then be like, oh my gosh, this was part of the missing piece. This was part of what was always meant to be my practice. So you have to make sure that you're allowing space for these events to happen. And this kind of goes into my second tip, which is about experimenting and trying new things and being open to new things. I think that when it comes to magical research, and I've talked about this before if you've been around, right? There's these two ways that I conceptualize it. There's the idea of I'm going to go deeper into one subject, or I'm going to go wide and I'm just going to widely research. I think it really depends, but I find that widely researching, when you're at the point in your practice where you really want to actively work on your day-to-day routine and develop your day-to-day routine. I mean, honestly, like I could see both helping with that, but if you're in that place where like part of the problem is you feel like you haven't really found your thing yet, or you don't, there's not a practice that you like gravitate towards, you know, necessarily, learning widely can really help with that, right? And I feel like I talked about this pretty recently on the podcast, so I won't go on and on about it because I feel like I've probably done that recently. But thinking about that and just doing a quick audit, like, okay, how am I learning right now? How am I researching? Are there any really interesting topics that I just feel really drawn to? Because what might happen is you pick up a book about something, you go to a class about something that you know, maybe don't really know that much about, but you feel drawn to it. And then again, it becomes rooted in your personal practice, or you learn like a small nugget of information that then you can take with you. And so that's why it's important to do this type of learning, research, or experimenting, because you want to find those little tiny things that you can bring in. I remember I used to feel this way about like marketing stuff, like in business stuff, because I feel like I don't do it as much anymore, but a couple of years ago I was like, I need to figure out how business works, how a business works, how my business works, how business works in general. So I found myself taking like marketing classes and digital marketing and business and like various topics, right? And sometimes I would go to a class or a lecture or a workshop or whatever it was, or even like a full program, and I would hear some piece of information and I was like, oh crap, like that's why I was meant to be here in this particular class, is because I needed to hear that. And I literally could have logged off and not even finished the class because I felt so strongly that like that was the tidbit that was right for me. Because another thing is, you're not going to be able to put everything to practice all at once. Like, even if you read a book all about a type of magic that you're really interested in, it's going to take like 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, maybe longer to actually implement all those things into your practice. So I think that that's why almost like that wider learning, or the more expansive learning, maybe chipping away at it a little bit every day, like reading a little bit a day, watching a video every day, getting a course and diving into the course a little bit every day, whatever works for you in terms of your research schedule or whatever. It could be primary text, it could be a bunch of things. I do think that that helps in terms of maybe every week or every month, you're thinking like, okay, if my research amounts to anything, it'll amount to just that one nugget of information that I really needed to hear that then becomes rooted in my personal practice. And if you're doing these things more frequently, the frequency of you finding those nuggets is more, you know, it's more likely. Am I making sense? So I think especially when you're trying to figure out your practice and trying to integrate it daily, that's important. It's kind of like how, you know, I was trying to figure out how to like do marketing. I was like, what is happening? And like, that was important for me to, on a daily basis, or as often as I could, right, you know, tap into that, tune into that type of stuff, learn about that type of stuff, so that I could figure out what was right for me and integrate it into my, like, what I'm gonna do as far as like content marketing and social media and that sort of thing, right? So that's kind of what I mean by that. I also want to say with like trying out new things, we're talking about research here, but that's what we previously discussed. But I also want to bring up the idea of like actually trying things out, you know, because I think so much of why people don't dive into magic on a day-to-day basis, or they feel like it's difficult to integrate their life with their practice, is because and maybe you've heard this term before, or maybe you haven't, but there's sort of this idea of like being an armchair occultist or being an armchair witch or whatever, where like you're reading and you're researching and you're sitting in your armchair, right? But are you actually going to the altar and practicing? And I don't say this to make anybody feel bad or make you be like, oh my God, fuck, I'm an armchair witch or something, right? Like, I don't bring that up to make you feel that way at all. If you're feeling that way, no. I don't want you to feel that way. I bring I bring it up because I think we, as practitioners, whether it's because of stuff that you've heard online, maybe advice that you've gotten in the past, whatever it is, maybe you've read it in a book, I don't know. We all get fed like information that is pretty negative about spell work or witchcraft, even in the community. I just think that holds practitioners back, especially when they're kind of trying to transition from like upper beginner to intermediate or advanced. I think that it really holds practitioners back because then they feel like, okay, I need to do more research on this topic to learn what I can do to prevent these horrible things from happening or whatever. Or like, oh, I don't know if I should do this or whatever it is. Like there's all this fear from that. There also might be other reasons why you're not as comfortable just kind of experimenting with magic, but I would, journal about that. I would bring your cards out and talk about that and just kind of go through it and be like, what about me doesn't, or what about what I've learned, or what about what I've heard, or what about my mindset and belief system currently? What about that makes me not want to be as experimental with my magic? You might have gathered information over time that was taught from a magical worldview that's pretty rigid, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that every magical worldview is so important, and I totally believe in like the diversity of different magical systems. Sometimes the fear of experimenting or the feeling of, oh, I shouldn't or I don't want to or whatever, is because you have absorbed messaging that is inherently dogmatic or comes from certain magical or occult worldviews that are very rigid. And again, maybe thinking to yourself like, okay, what are these worldviews? Where is this information coming from? What is there? Like, let's go to the root of this idea, and consider like why this idea came to be this way, why the potentially dogmatic, line of thinking that you've absorbed, why that became what it was. This is deconstruction. This is the process of deconstructing. And so if you've deconstructed, maybe like Catholicism or Christianity or whatever spiritual practice you're a part of, you're going to have to constantly deconstruct because there's so much messaging. And honestly, it's not just spiritual practice. This happens in politics, this happens in ideology of any kind. It's across the board. So, if you thought you were done deconstructing, surprise, you're probably not. All you have to do is just think. Like, okay, where did I get this idea from? Where did they get that idea from? What is the root of this? What is that worldview based in? You're just going down the line, Do I actually want to believe this, right? Deconstruction. that's a whole part of this. That's a whole part of this tip of like how to engage with magic in your day-to-day life. Because if you're held up by whether it's Christian ideology, whether it's fear-mongering in the witchcraft or pagan community, whether it's maybe like a pagan group that you have learned a lot from that has very rigid ideology, whatever it is, that is like that rigidness or this feeling of like I need to do this a certain way or else really is a deterrent to you coming into your own practice, you coming into self-mastery, you learning, oh, like this is how I want to navigate my deity work practice. This is how I want to navigate my protection magic practice right now. This is, I'm really interested in this. This is how I want to experiment with that. All of that is very personal and requires you to have a more, I would say like a more self-assured way of viewing your magical practice. And so if you're feeling all of these things, if this really resonates with you, then part of why you're maybe having a hard time integrating your magical practice into your day-to-day life is because you need a little bit more self-leadership, self-sovereignty, a little bit more like, hey, I am the witch, I am the sorceress, I am the magician in my life. Literally think of the magician card in tarot, like He is the magician. He's got his tools, and it's between him and the tools, between him and the elements. He is the one that goes, okay, I'm going to make this my own. I'm going to adapt these tools and these universal truths to me, right? And, you know, it's no surprise, I'm a chaos witch. I love chaos magic. I think that the magical worldview of chaos magic really resonates with me because there is such a aversion to dogma with chaos magic. It's sort of one of the ideas of like chaos magic is don't be dogmatic, but also learn what works for you in your personal paradigm and seek that out in a self-assured way. And the only way to seek that out in a way that you learn from over time is by experimenting, is by having magical hypothesis, is by going, okay, I'm going to put this together with this and we're going to see what happens. Or I'm going to try this practice on a day-to-day basis and I'm going to see how it affects my life and I'm going to write down and note the effects of that, right? So experimentation needs to happen. And if you don't feel comfortable experimenting, do some deconstruction. The next thing is don't hesitate when you feel like doing magic. I'm a big feels person. Like, I am somebody who is like, ooh, I just feel like paying a bill right now. Like, I'm like, it's time, you know? And I go and I pay all my bills or whatever, right? This is literally something that has happened recently. This is a real example. So I love that kind of stuff where I'm just like, okay, I'm really into it. Like, I just feel like doing this right now. This is sometimes I feel like sometimes this might annoy people in my life. Maybe it doesn't. I sometimes worry about that. I'm like, I hope I'm not being annoying when I just like poof out of the room because I have an idea that I need to do, or I suddenly remembered I have a spell that I want to do or whatever. But I think that there is a real virtue in this idea. And you're being very self-assured. There is this very positive momentum effect that happens when you just want to do something. So, you know, think about it like this. Like, if you just get a whim that comes over you to want to do a protection spell, maybe it's inspired by something. Maybe it's just like, ooh, I bought that candle last week. I completely forgot I had it. I really want to work with that. I really want to touch my herbs. I really want to get into it. You know, again, usually it's like, oh, I got this new thing, or ooh, I just like for whatever reason really want to go to my altar right now, and this is the spell that I want to cast. Work with those moments. Don't hesitate. Don't say no, like I'm kind of busy, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. Like, if you can. Maybe don't leave work, you know, don't like clock out and get fired, but like work with it, you know, and be like, you know what, maybe I should just do this. Sometimes with me, like I will try to make it a challenge. I'll be like, wow, I really want to do a protection spell today. Like, let's see like how many ways that I can weave this into my day. Like, maybe I'll start the morning and I'll do like a meditation breathwork session where I am calling in like a protective shield around me. Maybe later I will like actually do a candle spell. Maybe I'll do, you know, XYZ. Sometimes I say, ooh, I really want to, or maybe need to do a magical working. Like, maybe I'm like, ugh, I really feel like shit today. You know, I need to do some like uncrossing work, or I need to do some like work for vitality or energy, or to help me get rid of the yucky vibes that I have on me or something. And I'll say like, oh, what spell or curio or item or thing do I want to try out with this? Again, I'm always trying to see what works for me in my paradigm as a chaos witch. So sometimes I'll just be like, ooh, I haven't done a cleansing like this before. I want to try this out. Or I got this idea for, you know, kind of mixing together some of my cleansing methods. Let me work with that. And so using those moments where you have a lot of energy for a specific type of spell to try something out, to be experimental, or maybe you just have a toolkit, and this is kind of like my next tip, having a toolkit of the things that you really enjoy doing, that you feel like you have the ingredients for, you know how to do them without having to look them up in a book, without having to refer to your notes, you've memorized them, you feel, you know they work, they've worked for you in the past. Having a toolkit that resembles these things, like that resembles this, is what I'm trying to say, is really important, because sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling some glamour magic. Let's just do my classic go-to glamour magic routine. Haven't done that in a while, you know? And it feels so good, and it feels so integrated. It's kind of like when you're cooking and you're like, ooh, I haven't made this recipe in a while, but I've made this recipe so many times that like, I'm so craving this right now. This happened to me the other day. I have this like recipe for, it's like basically like almost like Korean like beef. And sometimes I put it in lettuce wraps, and sometimes I put it with like noodles, and I do like soy, like hoisin sauce kind of thing. It's really good. Like sesame oil, it's so good. I love it. It's so easy. I've totally memorized the recipe. Like I can make it in like 15 minutes. I love it. It hits all the nutritional macros or whatever. It's delicious. My whole family loves it. So like that is a meal where I'm like, ooh, I'm fucking craving that right now. I'm gonna go to the grocery store, get the ingredients if I don't have them, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna make this meal. And again, it's really easy. It's really vibey. It's really like, let's do it. And I love having stuff like that in my toolkit. I also, however, love to get new recipe books and try things out and, you know, be experimental with my cooking. So sometimes when I feel like cooking, sometimes the vibe is less like I want to do this thing in my toolkit, because I can do that in 15 minutes on a weeknight if I want to. If I have like 2 hours to make a really nice meal, maybe on like a Saturday night or something, I'm going to say to myself like, oh, I want to use this time to do a spell, or, well, this is an analogy for spell work, so I said it, right? But like look in a recipe book, find a recipe, follow a recipe, make something that I haven't done before, make something that is challenging for me that I have to keep referencing and figuring out how to do it, and maybe I make a mistake and it's not that good or whatever. I'd rather do that when I have the time and energy than when I need a meal on like a Wednesday night. You know what I mean? So you have to think about your magical practice like that as well, where it's good to do the research and to come up with what you want to try next. You know, I'm reading through the recipe books. I'm like, ooh, when I have time, I'm going to make this recipe. And I make a note of it. But it's also good to have those weeknight meals, like literally, and to constantly be engaging with both of them and asking the question, do I want something new or do I want something classic today, right? Do I want the classic glamour routine, or do I want to engage with glamour in a different way? And usually when I'm engaging with a magical practice in a different way, or I'm trying a new spell, or I'm experimenting with magic in a way that I really haven't before, what I will do is I will plan a time for that. Or if I just get, like I said, if I just get the wind that day that I really want to do a magical thing and I have time and energy for it, then I'll go, ooh, this is a perfect opportunity to write that in, even if it wasn't existing in my schedule, right? So working with your schedule in a fluid way that aligns with your natural energy levels is kind of what I'm suggesting here. And I think that you could take that statement and apply it to so many areas of adapting a magical practice into day-to-day life. I think that there are so many ways you could say to yourself, what is my natural energy level, and how can I work with this in a magical way? How can I adapt my magical practice to this? Because the good thing is your magical practice is something that you have control over. You might not feel like you do, but you do. Like, you have control over this. So asking yourself, okay, I feel really good at night. I'm usually really sleepy in the morning. You're probably not a contender for like a really intense morning meditation routine. I am not a morning meditation person. I'm way too sleepy. I am one of the sleepiest girls you will ever meet. I'm like Energizer Bunny until I hit a wall, and then I'm asleep, and then I'm really hard to wake up. Like, every night I'm in REM, like mega lucid dreaming sleep. I have the craziest dreams every night. And that's why it's so hard to like raise me from that, or, you know, rouse me from that, because I'm just like somewhere else entirely. So the morning is kind of a bad time because I find myself like trying to get into a meditation in the morning and I just fall asleep, or I have a hard time like starting my day from it. So typically my morning routine is pretty bare bones compared to an evening routine. Usually like after I drink coffee and eat breakfast, I will go to the altar and engage with my deities. Sometimes I will do that like fasted, like I will do that before I, you know, eat or drink coffee. And sometimes I do like to exercise before I eat or drink coffee. So I usually drink coffee. I'm like a cortisol nightmare. I'll drink coffee and then I'll like do exercise, and I need to stop doing this. But I like to do that sometimes because, again, I just go with my energy level. And some days I wake up finally from my like deep fucking sleep and I'm like, ooh, I really am in the mood to run around or do some exercise or dance. I love dancing. That's like my preferred movement in general. It's my preferred way of achieving gnosis. It's my preferred way of exercising. I love dancing. So sometimes I'll literally dance for like 30 to 45 minutes in the morning. And for me, like it's like kind of meditation. Like it's not official meditation, you know what I mean? But it's movement meditation. My brain is not on when I'm dancing. I am in my body. I am with the world. I am with my gods. I am everywhere all at once and nowhere all at once. And that is one of my preferred ways. And so even though, I bring this up to say, like, even though I'm not like a morning breathwork person, morning meditation person, I'm going to break up my apps and do some meditations. Even though I don't do that, I usually do that at some point in the beginning of my day. Every day I dance, and usually that is in the beginning part of my day, and it's kind of like a winding in to my day, or sometimes an after lunch thing or a before lunch thing or whatever. So you just have to work with your schedule and your energy levels. This kind of goes into my next tip, which is about really like considering your day-to-day life and recognizing all of the magic that you already do in your day-to-day life. Literally, this is what I want you to do. For the next week, I want you to consider, maybe you can think about last week if you want, but consider what magical acts did I do that I didn't even clock as magic? Because I assure you, no matter if you're a beginner or you've been doing this for 20 years, there are going to be moments of your day where you engage with magic or the divine and you are not even clocking that as doing such. So for example, let's just start for today for me. Today, what did I do? I did some dancing. I did my meditation / connecting with myself and the divine. Congratulations. I did Thurgy. So I did my dancing. This is when, being a witchcraft content creator helps, right? Then I went and I sat at a cafe and I worked on my Eleusinian Mysteries class that me and Jess are putting on at the end of the month. It's happening on August 26th, and we are basically breaking down the Eleusinian mystery cult and what was, potentially practiced during those rites and rituals. So there's a lot of research. We literally have like a 70-page Google Doc with all of our notes, all of our research notes and citations. It's getting crazy. Anyway, I was at the coffee shop for like 3 hours working on the Google Doc, making slides, doing all that. So that is in service to the divine in some way, right? So there we go. On the way home, I got caught in a rainstorm and I pulled over and I just kind of allowed the rain. Luckily, I was in the car, but I allowed the rain to like wash over the car. And I just sat there and was like, there's something about this moment where the divine is like stopping me. Like I am being asked to pause right here and allow like nature to occur. And so I meditated on that briefly when I was in the car. Then I continued to drive after it stopped raining, and there was a fucking rainbow in the sky, and I was like, oh my god, there's a rainbow. And I vibed with the rainbow a little bit, you know, as you do. And I really thought about the rainbow. Even, I'll even go back earlier this morning, I had a crazy dream and I did some dream journaling on it. So this is just today. A day where I lit my altar candles, woo. A day where I did not like do a ritual. I did not like go to the altar in any super mindful way. I lit my altar candles, right? But I'm not like sitting there for 20 minutes like evoking a deity. These were all the witchy things I did today. I've thought of another one too. I did some uncrossing in the shower with like a body scrub I'd made for uncrossing and removal of like negative energy. So I did an uncrossing in the shower. Look at that. So all of these things I did today without intentionally doing magic. They've just been woven into my day-to-day life. So when you're thinking about how do I weave magic into my day-to-day life, consider how you're already doing that and try to turn up the dial on that. Try to lean into that a little bit more. Try to, through experimentation, through knowing about your personal practice and feeling self-assured in that and making it all happen, ask yourself, how can I turn up the dial? How can I engage a little bit more intentionally with these things that I'm already doing? These things they're already working for me and already a part of my routine. Really, at the end of the day, weaving magic into your day-to-day life is saying, what do I want to create on a day-to-day basis? What do I want my day-to-day routine to be generating for me? How do I want it to feel? What practices do I know I want to engage in? And just allow it to unfold based off of that. I think at the end of the day, it's about really taking like this ownership of your time and of your life and saying like, okay, I get to, not I have to or I should or whatever, I get to, as a witch, because you are a witch, how am I going to engage with this deep part of me on a day-to-day basis and allow that to change my life? And there's so many ways you could approach this. There's so many ways that you could unpack this, right? Because part of it is learning more about that really powerful, like magical practitioner that's within, that exists in you, that is who you are. Some of it is about how do I want my day-to-day life to feel? Some of it is how do I want to be constantly evolving in my magical practice on an everyday basis? What are my current goals and manifestations? What problems am I running into that could potentially be solved through magic? I mean, so much of my day-to-day magical practice is like small problem solving. Like, oh, okay, Mercury retrograde is fucking me up today. I'm gonna say the Orphic hymn to Mercury or Hermes. I'm gonna take my fluorite crystal, which is like a mercurial crystal, and I'm gonna like hold it and ask fluorite to help me do my things, you know, like that is problem solving magic, right? So I think another part of this as well is really just starting to get comfortable solving problems with magic on the fly. Some magic that you do on a day-to-day basis is going to be, you know, something that is like adding on to your energy. Like I'm going to like layer this intention onto my life right now in order to attract something. Glamour magic, right? Some things in your magical practice are going to be like, how can I solve this problem? How can I repel this thing? How can I, you know, create this long-term result that I'm looking for? How can I like help me do my mundane shit that I need to do from a magical perspective? My camera just overheated, so I think we've dropped all the hottest information literally that we can. And I think the episode should end here now. I mean, it kind of has to because my camera is overheating. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you're listening like on a podcast platform or on YouTube or wherever you're listening, consider leaving us a review, dropping a comment. If you're on YouTube, liking the video, subscribing to my channel, all of the above. If you want to support my content even further, consider becoming a member of my Patreon. I'm going to be putting the patrons on the screen. Last week, I forgot to. Like I said I was, and then I didn't edit it in. So patrons on the screen, these are my Coven tier members. Thank you so much for supporting me, being my, highest tier and everything like that. The Coven tier members get to come to monthly events that we run in Patreon. September's event, spicy. I don't think I've talked about September's event yet publicly, but I'm doing another writing magic class. So the writing magic workshop went really well in May when we did it. So we're doing another writing magic class. And this time the theme is writing spicy scenes in erotica, but in a magical way. So using spicy erotica in literature to manifest what it is that you want to manifest. Think of it as like sex magic, but you're writing it on the page. So that is going to be our class for September, our Coven tier event. So, now you have to join, right? The other thing that's going on is our Eleusinian Mysteries class. So this is happening separately from the Patreon, but me and my friend Jess, who is like my IRL colleague and friend, and also she's a Persephone priestess and devotee, we are working together, putting all of our brains together and all of our research together that we've both been doing about this festival for years. And we're teaching the ultimate primer made for pagan practitioners about the Eleusinian mysteries and what happened there. So come to our class on August 26th about the Eleusinian mysteries. And yeah, I hope to see you there. I hope to see you in Patreon. Thank you so much. I really hope to see you next week on this podcast. So thanks so much for being here, and we will talk soon. Bye.